Boomer equals winner.
Adam Curry, John C. Dvorak.
It's Thursday, November 21st, 2019. This is your award-winning Gitmo Nation Media Assassination, episode 1192.
This is No Agenda.
Looking for our share of some USAID and broadcasting live from Opportunity Zone 33 here in the frontier of Austin, Texas, capital of the Drone Star State. In the morning, everybody. I'm Adam Curry.
And from northern Silicon Valley, where there's nothing better than pickled cauliflower, I'm John C. Dvorak.
It's Crackpot and Buzzkill in the morning.
Can always count on a food tip at the top of the show.
Indeed.
Pickled cauliflower. Ugh.
The best.
Yeah. Do you pickle it yourself? No doubt.
No, I don't. Actually, I pickle my own turnips, but I don't do the cauliflower.
What, you pickle your own turnips?
Oh, pickled turnips are the best.
Okay. Very nice. Pickled turnips. Hey, John, this was hands down the worst television week in American broadcast history.
I know, and these networks decided to actually interrupt their own programming and put this debate on TV. So you had to go find a station that was showing something that you could watch.
It was, and the shows were boring. Yesterday was particularly bad. The whole impeachment hearings, which just dragged on, although nicely back-timed by Chairman Schiff into the 8 o'clock news hour. He did that perfectly, so the pre-debate shows could start everywhere. Oh my God! It was, and it was, and then the snooze fest of a debate. It's like, this is so wrong. This is ruining television. I mean, even the debate. Just for a second, this format. If we can just talk as executives, this format is wrong. It's not a debate. It's a bunch of news models asking questions to each candidate.
What was the deal with 4 women and no men?
Well, I think that was an obvious statement, but that didn't bother me that much.
It bothered me.
You know, it's like these candidates. It's dumb. You get a 45 seconds to follow up, answer questions, and they just ask different questions of everybody. And once in a while, there's a little bit of interaction. But if you want this to succeed, if you want people to care, you gotta we have to have the candidates do some challenges. You know, like a 3-legged race, or build a bike together as a team. That would be a good show. That's what I want. That's where I'll see some leadership. But no. Just the same.
Put Gordon Ramsay in front of the group.
Yes, have him cooking. Exactly, a cook-off. Chopped. Chopped. I'm sorry, Elizabeth. You're chopped. You're off. You've been, and maybe do a diary room where the candidates. Well, I really didn't like what Tulsi did to me. That was just not so nice. But okay, I'll soldier on. I mean, this is how you do a show. And they still got the music and the debate. No one cares. This is not how people watch video anymore. Just my opinion, but God, I mean, spice it up a bit. If only they would give us a little bit of control over the production of this show, it would be so much better. Everybody would be watching.
Well,
and it's the trend. We got comedians
running
the
show where the guys have to go through a labyrinth of punching bags and things hitting them and swinging.
American Gladiator, American Ninja.
No, there's a one that's better than that. It's called Knocked Out or Punch Out.
Oh yeah,
or something.
And it's really violent because those big padded things hit you pretty hard. They knock you over.
Yeah, and they knock you into the drink.
There you go.
Now with those guys going through that would be great.
That would be good. Exactly. Ay. So, where do you want? I think we should just start with this television week so we can get through it, and maybe we do it in order of appearance, starting with the continuation of the hearings.
Well, I'll tell you what I have.
Mm-hmm.
I have no clips from the hearings because I'm going to take a look at the transcripts, do some analysis of the end of the days and things like that, and then maybe have something for Sunday. Although I doubt it.
Important analysis.
There's no important analysis. So I do. All my clips are from the debates, and it's just a couple just to ridicule the people that were there. Although I do have the Tulsi I thought it was chicken shit, by the way. They had Tulsi. They threw our softball to start yakking.
Wait, you're going into the debate? I have clips on the hearing. I mean,
okay. Well, then I'm going to skip my clips on the debates right now. We'll do them after the hearings, and then we can talk.
Exactly, because the hearing. Well, first of all, if I can just preface this, these hearings. With a lot of hearsay and people going back and forth and how they felt about policy and policy being upended and ambassadors, people paying $1 million to become ambassadors. I mean, this is all just the asshole of what politics is in America. Nothing interesting, no proof.
Well, you didn't find it interesting that number of the candidates? I think Klobuchar was one of them.
I'm talking about the hearings.
No, wait.
Oh.
That a number of the candidates would all go on later and say, "Oh, yeah, these hearings, the impeachment, it's unbelievable that this guy got this ambassadorship only because he bundled money for." Are they kidding us?
Well, let's look at all of the ambassadorships and let's go back to Obama. Come on, it's stupid.
Go back to Teddy Roosevelt.
Yes. Exactly.
The Plum ambassadorships, the ones right now, the Plum ones are EU, which is what that guy was, Sonderheim, whatever his name was.
Yeah, that's worth $1 million.
EU, he was a bundler. The EU ambassadorship, we said this before on the show. Vatican ambassadorship is a killer.
London,
you don't have to do anything.
You want to be in London. You want to be in Paris.
London, Paris,
Rome,
Singapore. Singapore's a winner.
Yes, Elizabeth Warren, who said, "Hey, if you're a billionaire, if you're rich, and if you wanna get an ambassadorship, don't donate to me." Okay, that's good. Noted.
What an idiot!
All right, back to the hearing, because I do have one central premise that I'm interested in, and I'll get to that because I did kind of a deep dive.
Woo.
So while everyone's going on about, security assistance, which I love this word, this is a new term for weapon sales. Security assistance. I wasn't buying a gun off the first. I was getting some security assistance. That's all, just some security assistance. That's all. It's not a big deal. So, we gave $1 billion. We have Joe Biden saying he wouldn't give it if something didn't stop prosecution. But $1 billion. Nowhere at any point did anyone, well, I have a kind of half a clip. Did anyone say, well, what is this $1 billion for? What are they doing with $1 billion? So let's kind of start with that. Will Hurd, congressman or senator? I think it's congressman from Texas.
They're all congressmen in this hearing.
Yes, and he's actually not going to stand for re-election. He's done with everything. And he seems like a nice guy, but former spook who brags about it a little bit too much. And he asked Ms. Cooper, who is the Defense Department's envoy for security assistance, exactly what kind of money was put together and where it comes from and what it's meant for. Oh, before I say that. Miss Cooper, she looks like Meg from Family Guy. Did you notice that? She's totally Meg from Family Guy with the glasses, the haircut's the same.
A little cap.
If she had that, it would be perfect. So here's Hurd asking her about this aid, and where it comes from, and what buckets it's from, and what it's really for, and is it really Javelin missiles showing up in crates, or is it something else?
Can you explain, I know FMF, Foreign Military Financing, is State Departments, but can you explain the difference between FMF and USAI funding, and also how the Ukrainians get lethal aid?
So there are 3 separate pieces to our overall ability to provide equipment to the Ukrainian armed forces. The first is the Foreign Military Finance System, which is a State Department authority, and countries around the world have this authority. That authority is used for some of the training and equipment. There's also the Ukraine Security Assistance Initiative. That's a DoD authority. Unlike the state authority, the DoD authority is only a 1-year authority. And then third, there's opportunity for defense sales. And that is something that we're working with the Ukrainians on now so that they can actually purchase U.S. equipment. But the Javelin specifically was provided under FMF initially.
Financing.
And now the Ukrainians are interested in the purchase of Javelin.
And there wasn't a hold put on purchasing of equipment, is that correct?
Not to my understanding, no.
Yeah, FMF, Foreign Military Financing, and it's a great system. The taxpayers send their money to the Treasury. The Treasury then, at the command of typically Congress, sends that in the form of foreign military financing. Of course, I don't think they actually send anything, but let's just pretend. Here's a check. And then they take the check and say, great, who's got some javelins? Oh, let me hand it right back to you. And it goes into the military-industrial complex. This is a round-robin game, and we might as well just recognize that that's what it's about. And those javelins were not held up. They could purchase, and anyone, believe me, the U.S. military-industrial campus store does not close. You want to show up with some money? No problem. As long as you're pre-approved, we'll give it to you. So I'm trying to figure out where all this money has been going to Ukraine. And it's if you look at the so there was an office and management budget request that of course comes from the executive branch, from the president, which had a whole list of items which are all financial codes. And the request was, hey, here's all this money, which equals about $39 billion you're going to give away in 2019. Could you please tell me, just itemize this shit so we understand what's going on? This has been a campaign promise, so I'm happy that's happening. And there was no news on it, but I finally got a hold of the interoffice memo, which spells this out quite clearly. But if you go back, we've given $5 billion to Ukraine in recent history. And funny enough, the only place I could find anything, because this OMB memo, if you trace it back and you look at the foreign military financing, there's no banks' names aren't filled in, recipient name. It's completely void of any information. And in 2014, when we really cranked up the aid, because of course we were about to replace the government in Ukraine, of all outfits, Huffington Post tried to figure out where all this money was going.
Now, the United States is preparing to give $1 billion in aid to the Ukraine, but because there is a little public disclosure on those funds, it'll be a while before we know exactly how the money is used. However, a Huffington Post review of disclosures of the $5 billion of aid given to Ukraine since 1992 might give us some insight. Much of the aid has gone to programs combating human trafficking or the proliferation of arms, dismantling of Chernobyl, and groups promoting democracy and civic engagement. Now, President Obama has already said that some of the new aid will go to this latter group. In a fact sheet released this week, the administration said, quote, the United States will provide technical assistance to train election observers, help bring electoral processes in line with international standards, and promote robust participation by civil society organizations and a free and independent media.
So the focus there, $1 billion, 1,000 million dollar bills going to non-governmental organizations to let me see, I have the to fund groups promoting civic engagement, the rule of law, investigative journalism, and oversight of elections. Come on! And subsequently, we overthrew the government, put our own people in. This is quite funny. In addition,
this is unbelievably bogus.
Yes. In addition to that, USAID contributed $200 million. This is part of this 1,000 million.
Yeah. USAID in these situations reminds me of these venture capital companies, where you have one guy, a bunch of guys jump in on something, and then some laggard. I'm not going to say who, but let's just say any number of them. Look, hey, all these guys are investing in this. I have to get my piece of the action. Let me put my money in.
Exactly.
That's what USAID does a lot of times.
Yes, and it comes back multiple fold. Although USAID gets a lot of money from the National Endowment for Democracy, which is also taxpayer money. But which is
something we should be part of.
Looking at these numbers, yes, I totally agree. But
I think if we should just be the National Endowment for Democracy's podcast.
We'll take care of you. Now, yesterday, a news release came out about a press conference. This was Interfax, which is a throwback to the 70s, I think. I didn't know Interfax still existed. Isn't this kind of the Eurasian news service, like the Eurasian Associated Press?
Yeah, I've heard of them.
So Interfax releases a news report that and a YouTube video to go along with it, which I'm having confirmed as if what the article says is what they actually said in this press conference. 2 Ukrainian members of parliament have now demanded that the presidents of Ukraine and the United States investigate suspicions of the legalization of $7.4 billion by the family of ex-president Viktor Yanukovych through the American investment firm of Franklin Templeton Investments. You know who is a part of Franklin Templeton Investments?
No.
Hunter Biden. He consults for that. Yes, of course. So anyway,
this guy's in way too deep.
What they're saying is that, and this is Derkash, one of these 2 members of parliament. Several facts indicate Franklin Templeton Investments' relationship with the U.S. Democratic Party. The son of Templeton's founder, John Templeton Jr., was one of President Obama's major campaign donors. Another fund-related character is Thomas Donnellan, managing director of BlackRock Investment Institute. Let's see. Presidents, where is it here? Anyway,
4 billionaire Democrats.
Well, what they're saying is there's this round-robin money laundering which goes through this Franklin Templeton Investments, and it directly benefits the DNC and many Democratic donors and politicians. So it's still Interfax, so this will get no play. Although I think Shapiro's outfit picked up on it.
Well, Interfax is Russian.
Of course, it's all.
So that's why it's not going to get any play. It's like Sputnik and
right, but it's
RT.
interesting. The Russians are reporting on the corruption of U.S. citizens in Ukraine.
Yeah, well, that's more likely that they're going to report on than anybody we've got working over there.
Yeah, well, this is true.
Which is the State Department.
But if you look at Kerry, all the people who have been involved in the State Department with Ukraine, all of this money going to NGOs who are going to oversee elections, come on. And then the one person, and this is, do you remember, her name is Natalie Jaresko. And Natalie Jaresko was named specifically by in previous documents and by these 2 Ukrainian politicians, saying that she was the one that was shepherding the this money laundering. And if you recall, she's a U.S. citizen who was born. She was born in Ukraine, naturalized U.S. citizen. Big Wall, not big, but she had a $600 million fund of investments, private investments in Ukraine. And then she was asked to be the finance minister when they had that big switcheroo. Yeah. When we came in, and we laughed about it, of course, because what kind of person are you putting in there and take care of the country's money when she has a vested interest? And she was removed, and she's now, I think they shipped her off to some god awful place. Let me see where she is. I'm sorry, she's now been shipped off to Puerto Rico. And she's executive director
of busy
Financial Oversight and Management Board. But she's the one that actually shepherded, according to the Ukrainians, shepherded a lot of this money. So I found that really eye-opening that's not discussed, because we're giving away a lot of money everywhere. And
well, it's not this. It seems to me that the hearings, these impeachment hearings, especially when you bring all this stuff up and the Interfax story, it's just really to create a huge, just a smokescreen to cover up Biden.
Yes. Well, maybe not just cover up Biden.
Well, and I don't think Biden's alone. That's the thing.
Yes, because
if
a whole
Biden
bunch.
was a lone wolf.
Exactly. They would have thrown him in. Goodbye.
Who gives a shit? But everybody's involved because they all get a piece of it. They all have a taste.
There were always rumors about huge financial contributions coming through Ukraine into the Obama campaigns. What if it's rife? What if 50%, maybe 100% of these fuckers in Congress are all in on the deal? They're all in on the take. They're all getting round robin kickbacks. They get a Franklin Templeton investment account, which, by the way, they have a huge Ukraine fund, of course. Maybe there's a whole bunch of people in on this, and then they look at that and go, "Holy crap, we're going to get revealed. What do? I don't know. Let's do a TV show.
Impeach Trump.
Let's do a TV show.
Impeach Trump. That'll do it."
All right. So then we have the typical Fox News proofs that this was a big nothing burger. I love playing that. This is in both cases, Republican Mike Turner really got straight to the heart of the matter. Each segment about a minute in length, and that was all we really needed to understand what this was about. First, he's going to ask Ambassador Sondland, the ambassador to the European Union, if he actually ever heard anyone anywhere say that Trump wanted something in return for letting the security assistance flow.
After you testified, Chairman Schiff ran out and gave a press conference and said he gets to impeach the President of the United States because of your testimony. And if you pull up CNN today, right now, their banner says Sondland ties Trump to withholding aid. Is that your testimony today, Ambassador Sondland, that you have evidence that Donald Trump tied the investigations to the aid? Because I don't think you're saying that.
I've said repeatedly, Congressman, I was presuming. I also said that President Trump...
So no one told you, not just the president. Giuliani didn't tell you. Mulvaney didn't tell you. Nobody, Pompeo didn't tell you. Nobody else on this planet told you that Donald Trump was tying aid to these investigations. Is that correct?
I think I already testified.
No, answer the question. Is it correct? No one on this planet told you that Donald Trump was tying this aid to the investigations. Because if your answer is yes, then the chairman's wrong and the headline on CNN is wrong. No one on this planet told you that President Trump was tying aid to investigations. Yes or no?
Yes.
So, you really have no testimony today that ties President Trump to a scheme to withhold aid from Ukraine in exchange for these investigations?
Other than my own presumption.
Which is nothing.
You're worthless. This is no good.
Well, that probably should be highlighted as clip of the day.
Well, then I will take that award in recognition now.
Clip of the day.
Because it really negates the entire testimony that every news source, New York Times, CNN, MSNBC, obviously, even Fox probably.
Oh, yeah, Fox definitely.
But I'm talking about Deutsche Welle, France 24, and all these other guys. They all have spewed the misinformation that this guy tied everything together, and his testimony has sunk Trump. And they all did it. Every news organization around the world.
Well, in fact, after the hearing, they had that 40 minutes to fill before the debate pre-show would start. Here's a little compilage of some of the M5M comments.
Now we know that every fantasy about how corrupt this administration was is actually true.
Our live coverage of the blowtorch testimony this morning from Gordon Sondland turns out to be the guy who has offered the most stunning testimony.
In addition to that and the bombshells we've heard about, this was an IED from Mr. Sondland.
As you said, taking a blowtorch to every defense Donald Trump has offered. We don't say this very often anymore because it's rarely true, but I think today changed everything.
It's really true this time. This time is really, really true. Blowtorch testimony. Love me some blowtorch. Who comes up with this? That's a good line.
I like that one.
Blowtorch testimony. So the same Mike Turner questioned Ambassador Volker. Did the president ever mean he wanted something in return Did the Ukrainians ever think he wanted something in return?
It really only comes down to what did the President of the United States intend, and what did he say, and what did the Ukrainians understand or hear? Ambassador Volker, you're one of the first people that we've had in these open public testimony that's had conversations with both. So I get to ask you. You had a meeting with the President of the United States, and you believe that the policy issues that he raised concerning Ukraine were valid, correct?
Yes.
Did the President of the United States ever say to you that he was not going to allow aid to the United States to go to the Ukraine unless there were investigations into Burisma, the Bidens, or the 2016 elections?
No, he did not.
Did the Ukrainians ever tell you that they understood that they would not get a meeting with the President of the United States, a phone call with the President of the United States, military aid, or foreign aid from the United States unless they undertook investigations of Burisma, the Bidens, or the 2016 elections?
No, they did not.
You know, pretty much, Ambassador Volker, you just took apart their entire case.
No, he didn't, because the entire idea is to shape everybody's mind and to make you think that this president is a horrible man, has done, blowtorch testimony shows he's only in it for himself, because this process is not a legal one. It is a political process. You've heard them say this a million times. But what it means is you just have to convince everybody, and, kind of like global warming. That's the whole idea, and it does work eventually. If you get all the mainstream media saying this over and over again, people go like, it's like everyone says it, 97%.
It worked with the promotion of World War II. It works, and it's worked and worked and worked. We've done it with the Gulf of Tonkin. I mean, there was a million.
Tonkin, not Tompkin.
Tomskin.
Tonkin.
The Gulf of Tonkin, and it works. It just works. It works like a champ. It always has worked. You just keep it. It only works, by the way, when the media is in cahoots.
And this is
the media wants this. The media, which is, and no matter what anybody likes to say, well, they stopped denying this some years ago, that the media is rife with hardcore Democrat progressives.
Well,
it used to be an argument. Oh, no, yet, but now it's not. Yeah, so what?
But it's both sides. It's when it comes to television, all they want is ratings. That's why you get words like this. This is exactly what the pundits say, in a break during a wrestling match. Oh, blowtorch attack, blowtorch. Did you see the butt slammed him? Butt slam! They need the controversy. They need a fight. That's what people want to watch, which is why I'm very disappointed in how they handled all of this week's televised events, because they did not bring it. They didn't bring the fire. Anyway.
That's largely due to Schiff.
Well, Schiff was out there communicating coded messages. NPR heard it and responded.
Time is now with the minority for 20 minutes. I'm sorry, 33 minutes.
I believe you said 33 minutes. Interesting number there. Daniel Goldman has finished the questioning.
That's NPR catching it, too. Oh, 33. Guys,
We got a 33. We got a 33 on the floor. 33 on the floor. You know what it means. Assume the position.
Interesting number, the guy says.
And
wink, wink.
And then what I thought was the funniest bit, Lieutenant Colonel Vindman, address him properly, which I think is in this clip.
Apparently, isn't he a national security guy? He doesn't really have to wear a uniform ever.
No, he was dressed up for the occasion. And his opening statement, he talked about his, he was even asked about his Purple Heart, and so he served. You can't blame him for that. But that was the whole idea, is to dress up and show some official nature. Also, just like the finance minister, he was also asked by Ukraine to several times, publicly even, to serve as Ukraine's defense minister. It's just an interesting detail.
Yeah, that did come out.
He didn't take the gig, but it's just interesting. So then now we have Nunes asking questions, which is clearly drilling down into, hey man, where did all this come from? Who is the whistleblower? Vindman actually opens his mouth and starts to give us a clue as to where the whistleblower is located. And then Schiff steps in.
Lieutenant Colonel Vindman, did you discuss the July 25th phone call with anyone outside the White House on July 25th or the 26th? And if so, with whom?
Yes, I did. My core function is to coordinate U.S. government policy, interagency policy, and I spoke to two individuals with regards to providing some sort of readout of the call.
Two individuals that were not in the White House?
Not in the White House, cleared U.S. government officials with appropriate need to know.
And what agencies were these officials with?
Department of State, Deputy Assistant Secretary George Kent, who is responsible for the portfolio Eastern Europe, including Ukraine, and a individual from the Office of individual in the intelligence community.
As you know, the intelligence community has 17 different agencies. What agency was this individual from?
Stop it. If I could interject here, we don't want to use these proceedings.
It's our time,
I know,
Mr. Chair.
but we need to protect the whistleblower. Please stop. I want to make sure that there's no effort to out the whistleblower through the use of these proceedings. If the witness has a good faith belief that this may reveal the identity of the whistleblower, that is not the purpose that we are here for, and I want to advise the witness accordingly.
So, and now, of course, what's interesting is Schiff says that he doesn't even know the whistleblower, doesn't know who he is, yet apparently he does know that when Vindman's about to say office, and maybe he was going to say Office of Management and Budget, Office of the Director of National Intelligence, it's an office of something, there's a number of them, but the minute he's ready to spill the beans, Schiff steps in.
Well, that's interesting since he supposedly doesn't know who it is.
Yeah, exactly. Here's Vindman telling Nunes to shut up.
Mr. Vindman, you testified in your deposition that you did not know the whistleblower.
Ranking member, it's Lieutenant Colonel Vindman, please.
Lieutenant Colonel Vindman, you testified.
Shut up, slave.
What? Play that again. I wasn't expecting it to go that way.
Mr. Vindman,
I didn't see this.
You testified in your deposition that you did not know the whistleblower.
Ranking member, it's Lieutenant Colonel Vindman, please.
Lieutenant Colonel Vindman, you testified.
Shut up. I outrank you. Now, of course, with all the touchy-feely stuff, I could have pulled a million clips about how people felt hurt and it was wrong and no president should subvert our foreign policy, as if that's true, but okay. So it's very easy for...
The president is the foreign policy.
Yes, it's very easy for either side, and when I say side, I'm talking about M5M. It's very easy for them to cherry pick bits and pieces and create a story around it, which is really what this is about. The only thing, the only solace I take is that the politicians and the M5M are still playing by the old rules. The old rules are give an interview to the New York Times. They'll publish it on Wednesday. Wednesday night it'll be on the CBS 6 o'clock news. Then everyone else will copy that, and that's how you get the narrative. That's how you get the message into the ether. And of course, we have this internet thing, and we have our own ideas now. We're doing our own investigative work. So the rules of the game have changed, but these hearings, these day-long hearings, prove that they are still operating on the old system. So eventually that's not going to work. It may not be this time around, but eventually that's just going to fall apart. And with shows like this, with zero entertainment value, it's going to be over pretty soon. What's funny is the stuff on YouTube where people insert different words. They make funny little clips about it, but like no animated, no agenda. That's how people want to get to this information. And that's how things are exposed. And, I didn't know that moments. So that change is a-coming.
Well, I mean, the kind of thing that really made hay wasn't even on the hearings. It was after a discussion after the hearings, or on one of the shows, I guess it was MSNBC, where Eric Swalwell farted, supposedly. I have the clip.
Yes, Fartgate. I have But wait, before we go there, can I just play 2 clips in relation to the old media, new media? And then, of course, I want to get right back to Fartgate because...
Of course you do. See, this is the thing. This is you're old media. I'm new media.
Okay.
And you're proving it.
All right, hold on, new media. Okay, Boomer. By the way, I have magic powers. Everyone's reporting when I say okay, Boomer, their okay Google fires up. So I'm going to use my power right now. Okay, Boomer. Bark like a dog. I tried this earlier with the... In fact, I can probably show you. Here's what happens. Here's what should be happening to thousands of people around the world. Let me see if I can... I got to fire this up because I don't normally have it on. Let me see. Bark like a dog.
Boxer dog.
So hopefully everywhere around the world, Google talking devices start barking like a dog. So maybe we set off a whole Lady and the Tramp thing. All right. So just to show you how the elites think, the way old media is done, here's a quick example. 60 Minutes Australia. Fergie, who used to be married to Randy Andy, the royal, is being interviewed about her book. And, of course, the interviewer digs back into remember that, if you recall, a long time ago, video where she's got $40,000 in cash being given to her, secret hidden video in a hotel room, very scandalous. And she just doesn't want to talk about it. And here's how the old elites and the old media handle these situations.
I mean, did you take the money? At one stage, you had $40,000 cash sitting in front of you. Did you take it?
Absolutely, yes. And it was given to me, and I got it in the car and then returned it straight away.
Once the scandal broke?
As soon as I knew it was a scandal, not once it broke, Michael. But don't try and trick me now, because I'm not going to play this game. Delete that bit. John, can you just delete it, please, that bit? Because I don't want to go down this...
Duchess, I'm asking very fair questions of you.
No, I'm just too tabloidy.
John is Sarah's Australian agent, off-screen. This is everything you've written in your book, though.
Yes, I know, but it's
and you're
the way...
releasing your book, and you've agreed to do the interview.
The book has already been released, and the thing is, I'm not going to go down to this point. I'm going to answer your questions, but that's done. It's finished. I've answered it. Thank you very much. Moving on to the next question.
This is just the starting point of this year in your life that you've written about.
Thank you very
much.
It's
pivotal. It's what started the whole thing.
Thank you.
Just delete that. Delete it. Delete it right away. Delete it. Go away. Get rid of it. I'm not going to answer these questions. So her ex-husband, Prince Andrew, this is new media. This is how we laugh and learn at the same time. This is the Lucky TV guys. Actually, it's one guy, this guy in Holland, and he does these, they're not really deep fakes. He does the voices, or he'll just the voices of like the Dutch king and queen, and he'll make them say different things. And he did this to Prince Andrew during the BBC interview, where we uncovered that he is actually a reptile and doesn't sweat. But there was enough in that hour-long interview for the Lucky TV star, our guy in the lowlands, to turn it into this.
One of Epstein's accusers, Virginia Roberts, has made allegations against you. She says she dined with you, danced with you. She went on to have sex with you, to have bath, possibly.
There's a slight problem with the sex, because I have a peculiar medical condition, which is that I have a very tiny, PP, but that's just the way it is. So it's impossible for me to have sex with somebody. I'd love it, but I'm afraid I can't. I'm just not in a position to do so, because but that's very difficult to be able to prove. So that's the best explanation I can give you.
Your Royal Highness, thank you.
Thank you very much indeed.
Yeah, I have a very little PP. I don't know how he did it, but great job. This is the new media. This is what happens. What we do with the elites. We mock you, you fools. Now
just as an aside, since you brought this Holland. So one of our Holland Dutch knights, well, I don't know if he wants to be named or not. He sent me a care package from Holland.
Oh.
With a bunch of food in it for Christmas.
Dutch Christmas
including
food.
A giant Sinterklaas cookie.
Yeah, a ginger cookie, brown.
Yeah, big giant thing. something called stroopwafels.
Stroopwafels, yes, my favorite.
Stroopwafels. By the way, of all the things he sent, those are delicious.
But we've talked about stroopwafels for years on the show. Have you forgotten?
Never had one.
Oh, you never had one? Yeah, it's 2 wafers with some molasses inside, very thin.
Yes, they're really good.
Oh, no, especially...
Everything he sent, by the way, was just a different form of stale bread.
You know, the stroopwafels are really good after you do a shot of that Jambo juice. That's when you want the stroopwafel.
Well, those things are pretty interesting. There's something called, I think it's a peppernoffen?
Pepernoten.
Pepernoffen.
Very small ginger, like half a ball. And that is what the Black Pete's actually throw to the children in the parade or in the classroom, or they put some in the kid's shoe.
Yeah. Well, those things are weird. And then there's a thing called a Bacher's Kruppenoter. They're a bunch of they look like chocolate and vanilla. It looks like chocolate and vanilla candies. It looks like giant M&Ms, but inside there's stale bread.
Basically, you're right. A lot of the Dutch traditions are based on stale bread. I think it's a war thing. I don't know. Well, gee, I wish I had some of that goodness, because I love me a good Sinterklaas pakket.
Yeah, well.
That's what we love.
I haven't fit into that yet. All right,
Fartgate.
Anyway, thanks to Holland for sending that.
Yes. Meanwhile, back to the news of the day.
Fartgate. Now, I don't know, has this been verified? Did he admit to this, or has this been just doctored?
Well, trust but verify. I'm pretty sure it was real. You can't know I can't know for sure because I wasn't watching it, so I do not know.
Okay, well, if it was real, he's mic'd with a lavalier.
Thank you, but I have the answer to this. This is the whole point. First, let's play the clip. Let's play the clip.
Boom mic.
Let's play the. No, oh my God! When I tell you the answer, you're going to laugh your ass off.
Okay.
First, the clip of Fartgate. We have Chris Matthews, MSNBC, interviewing Eric Swalwell, who just fresh from the hearing,
and he's in the halls of Congress.
And
so far, is uncontradicted that the president used taxpayer dollars to ask the Ukrainians to help him cheat an election.
So, yes, the analysis that you started is spot on, because when I saw it, I'm just going to assume it's real. This is very simple. This is Chris Williams. What's his name? Wallace Matthews. So he asked the question. They switched to Swalwell. He's sitting on a chair in a studio. He's like, all right, Swalwell, I'm just going to let one rip here for a second. It bounces off the chair. That's why you could hear it. It was Matthews. Matthews dealt it.
All right, here's the problem with that. Swalwell paused. Well, he couldn't talk through the fart.
No. He heard the fart, and it scared him. It was a blast. He was like, what the hell did you just do? Someone's fart. No.
Okay, I'm not going to buy that because there's no real time here. There's always a lag, and the lag is long enough that he would have at least...
I looked at that angle. They have a hardwired connection between the halls of Congress and the studios. There's almost zero lag. But it doesn't take away from the fact that there's no way you can get that direct a sound from flatulence in the halls of Congress with just a boom mic or even with a lavalier. But in a studio against the backdrop of a chair, I mean, especially if it's a leather chair.
Yeah, but he's going to. Okay, well, it's up for debate. But so far, it appears as though this event was not a fake.
No, this is a real event, and they call old dudes like that an old fart for a reason. Come on, it's logical. Old fart. Why is it an old fart? Because old guys fart. It was Matthews.
We need to take some.
And I think it's shameful that he didn't at least tweet and let Swalwell off the hook. Okay, and that's the Fartgate. It didn't last long, but man, it was a nice break in the day, wasn't it?
It was a break.
It was a nice little break. But anyway, I think I know a bit about farts. And I especially when mic'd, because you don't want to, there's a lot of things you got to be careful of. And I think Matthews just sat there on his leather chair. I'm like, oh, man, I was answering the question. And I'm sure.
Well, it seems to me that, okay, well, it seems that would have happened more often than once with the anchor.
Well,
right? Swalwell looks like a guy who's into public flatulence. That thing could have just been a loud boomer that just echoed through the halls. He may have been proud of himself.
With the palms bursting.
If you look at Eric Swalwell,
air.
he looks like the kind of punk guy. He's a punk. He looks like one of those punk jocks who would do something like that in public just as a joke.
Well, in general, I think we should be a lot more open about flatulence. I feel especially bad for women who just will not fart. And they just won't, I understand, the stigma of it all, but I think it hurts women. Literally hurts them because they just won't let it out. And when you're not looking, that's when your woman all of a sudden goes flying around the room like a balloon.
Uh-huh. Okay, onward to the debates.
You brought it up.
I did. You're right. I'm sorry I did.
I'm not.
You're just making me regret it.
On to the debates.
All right, so the debates, of course, were useless, as you mentioned earlier, and I don't have the deep dive. I don't have what you did, which was the dynamite, by the way. It's a good show opener.
Thank you.
It brings in, especially that one clip of the day, which I almost wanted to hear again. It was so good. But so here we got mostly I'm looking for the gaffes and the arguments and the beefs and the kind of crap that goes on. So, of course, I got a gaffe. Now, somebody wrote a note. I'm going to read this.
Now, do you have a Joe gaffe? Because then I can play the jingle if you're...
No, I do have a Joe gaffe. I'm going to start with the Joe gaffe.
He's a little bit creepy, but mostly just sleepy. It's sleepy, creepy Uncle Joe. Joe Biden's Gaffe of the Week.
Okay. So producer Bill writes in. ITM Gents, look at the pics of Biden from the Democrat debate. He looked different and odd on camera.
Oh, his eyes.
I finally figured out they put dark contacts in Biden's eye to hide his sclera, or however you pronounce it, S-C-L-E-R-A.
That's the bleeding of the eyes.
The bleeding eyeball.
Mm-hmm.
In case he gets another bleed like he did during the Clinton town hall.
Yep.
And then he says, I take this as a 100% proof that they're jacking him up with amphetamines.
And at a certain moment, I think the meds kicked in. But if you go, because I got not that note and some other notes from people who said, hey, because we had talked about it. If you go back and look, Joe actually has nice kind of, his normal eyes a couple of years back are clear, kind of, now I'm color blind, but they look kind of lightish blue to me. Clear.
Yeah, they're good. He is good looking. He's a charmer. He's got those eyes of a guy. Hey, how
blue
you
eyes.
doing?
Hey, baby, how you doing? Look into my eyes.
He's one of those guys.
Yes, he is. And so they were completely dark. In his left eye is drooping a little bit. And his brain is scrambled. I mean, you could just hear what he's saying. He has no idea where he's going. It's abuse, elder abuse. It is. Elder abuse remains abusive.
I guess it could be.
All right.
So let's go with the Biden. I got two ISOs from this particular clip, which is the Biden gaffes on Medicare. Play the whole clip. You'll hear two gaffes in here that are worth noting.
The fact is that right now, the vast majority of Democrats do not support Medicare for all. It couldn't pass the United States Senate right now with Democrats. It couldn't pass the House. Nancy Pelosi is one of those people who then thinks it makes sense. We should build on Obamacare, provide the plan I put forward before anybody in here, adding a Medicare option in that plan, and not make people choose. Allow people to choose, I should say.
Yeah. I feel bad when I see that. It's just shit. It's shit, man. He needs to go home.
Well, he's always been this way. He does this. This is what years ago when he was vice president, we used to have the drunk or not drunk segment of the show.
Yeah, but then he was plastered and it was funny. Now it's just sad.
Well, so the two gaffes, did you catch both of them?
Possibly.
The first one, what you had to, I didn't catch it the first time I heard it, and then I said, wait, what did he actually say? And I'm reminded, by the way, people, the old timers out there, the old farts, they will remember Professor Irwin Corey, who died, by the way, recently at 102 years old.
This rings a bell. Why does this ring a bell?
Professor Irwin Corey was a double talk comic, one of the few left in the history of comedy. Nobody does it anymore. And so he'd be babbling about something, then he'd say and he'd be talking along, and then he'd throw double talk in there, and it would sound reasonable, and then he'd put a bunch of academic terms together that made no sense. He'd fit right in today's world as a comic doing this act. So Professor Irwin Corey kind of did this stuff as a comedy act, but Biden just does it. And I want to play the two ISOs, which are the mistakes. And I'll start with the let me see. I'll start with the one that's the obvious one, which is the one at the end, which is the Biden gaffe shoe. It says showy.
Yeah. It's all right. I understand you after all these years.
And not make people choose. Allow people to choose, I should say.
Yeah, that's it. The problem with that gaffe is it came at the end of his statement and really disempowers everything he just said. That's why it's a huge fail.
Yeah, that's a bad.
That was his payoff. That was the payoff of his plan, and he mucks it up. Anyone would be upset with that.
Now, he does the Irwin Corey thing in the middle, and this is the double talk guy. So before I play it, I want you to listen carefully and then tell me exactly what he said.
Nancy Pelosi is one of those people who then thinks it makes sense.
Okay. I'm glad you did this. Nancy Pelosi, one of those people, I think he said, who tends to make sense, but...
Nancy Pelosi is one of those people who then thinks it makes sense.
Who stem sticks make sense. What's your problem? It's a great... I understand perfectly what he's saying. Vote for me. Stem sticks take sense. Do you know what he said?
I think he's trying to say, he just rambled over it because he does this a lot. And a lot of guys do this. This is what Ron Paul used to talk like this. And so does a couple of, there are a number of people that, Nancy Pelosi talks like this.
Yes.
And so Biden
and
talks
Trump,
like
for
this
that
too.
matter.
So he's got something to
Trump
say.
Trump does this too. He does some of this.
Not as bad. But he has something, he wants to say something that's on top of what he just said, and so he's reiterating, but instead of actually going through the process and actually saying everything, he just jumbles it together as some sort of shorthand, and then continues on.
It's so
but if
it's so bad.
Play it one more time,
yeah, sure,
and then you'll hear it's just like Nancy Pelosi is along with me on this. I can't say.
Okay.
Nancy Pelosi is one of those people who then thinks it makes sense.
Yeah, who stands 6 makes sense. I totally get it. This was so bad that after the debate, Biden's campaign manager had to do the video. Now, we know that Joe has had some bad luck recently with the self-generated content. We've had the overmodulated microphone. We've had him in a bucket shot on an iPhone. So now they can't trust Joe. He's had a horrible evening. His brain is seeping out through his eyes. And I say that with love. And so the campaign manager has to do the pitch.
Hi, I'm Greg. I'm Joe Biden's campaign manager here at our Philadelphia headquarters. Joe Biden had a great debate tonight. He proved he's ready to be commander-in-chief on day one. So join the team. Chip in $5 now.
Chip in! Chip in! Chip in. Don't participate. Don't get active. Just chip in, slaves. Chip in.
Unbelievable. Yeah, so there was that. And I thought that was the highlight of the whole thing.
Mm-hmm. Well,
but let's go.
Okay.
Let's go with another one. I got another one here. This is Cory Booker.
Yes.
And this is Booker. And this, by the way, is what the linguist did. That guy who wrote that nasty note that we got two or three shows out of.
Yes.
About the T's and
glotalization.
Follow up today on that. He did this too, and. Which is an improper. This is using the language for the sole purpose of virtue signaling. And I'm going to tell my story, which I've told before, and I'm sure it's on the compilation of my stories, which is the time that I worked with. I was at Boeing with a guy who was interviewed and did some, he wrote an article for PC World, which was our competitor at PC Magazine. He wrote an article for him, and then they changed some of it, and he couldn't figure out why. And what they changed was, he said, and the representative for the company was blah, 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 blah. And they changed it to, and the spokesperson for the company was blah, 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 blah. So he's questioned, why did you change representative to spokesperson? And the woman copy editor said, we don't use sexist language at the magazine.
Yes, we don't.
And he says, what? Well, how is representative sexist language? She says, oh, well, let me put it this way. We make it clear that we don't use sexist language, and so spokesperson is a better word.
It's called virtue signaling.
It's virtue signaling, and this is like 20, 30 years ago. So this has been going on for a while. So here's Booker's version.
So look, this president has broken norms, as you've said. He uses platforms to demean, degrade, and divide this country in ways that are repugnant and appalling. But the next president, whoever they are, is going to have to be someone who can heal and bring this nation together.
I thought Booker was actually pretty lit last night. He had a couple of good moments, and I missed this one. Thank you. But it would have been cooler if it either said they in Spanish or had said Z. That would have been even cooler. Then, he would have gotten the clap out of that one.
So the idea is that you now substitute anything with they instead of the proper words.
Yes.
You don't say who. Let's go play it again so I can get that sentence straight.
Or maybe he's so used to there being two presidents, i.e. two Obamas, that he... Maybe he's just used to talking about they.
So look, this president has broken norms, as you've said. He uses platforms to demean, degrade, and divide this country in ways that are repugnant and appalling. But the next president, whoever they are, is going to have to be someone who can heal and bring this nation together.
Yeah, they were
the
both...
next president, whoever they are. Yeah. There's not going to be a horde of presidents. It's not going to be like a group.
Wait, shouldn't he have said whoever they is? That would have been better.
Well, okay. You're just ruining my. You're just going to keep eating away at me.
I'm adding to your fantastic segment. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So whoever they are is not correct, but that's what you use because it's been determined by the political police that you say they instead of he or she. So you don't say the next president, whoever he is, the next president, whoever they are. The next president, whoever she is, the next president, whoever they, it's always they. Mm-hmm. When in fact it should, but if you were not going to signal, you'd say the next president, whoever it is.
Yeah, that's a good way to say. Yep.
Or you could, if you want to be,
you say,
I think,
whatever
so
it
it doesn't sound so awkward, you'd say the next president, whoever that person is.
Or the next president, whatever that is. Because dogs are people too. No, I'm being serious.
No, I get you're on a roll. So so he did this, and when to me it stood out like a sore thumb. It was like, what do you mean, whoever they are?
And they has he in the middle. So even that's.
I'm
iffy.
Surprised that is not banned for that reason.
Iffy. I liked when Corey smoked Uncle Joe. I thought this was really good.
This week, what
makes this funny is that before the debates, I got the pre-stream. It was online,
mm-hmm.
and they had some crazy looking woman who looked like Pink, that singer, interviewing a bunch of millennials about it, and they went to Cory Booker, who is being interviewed before the debates, and he says, the one thing we can't do is condemn each other. We can't say anything bad. We're fellow Democrats.
Of course.
He made a big stink about that.
Well, he got a big laugh out of this.
This week, I hear him literally say that I don't think we should legalize marijuana. I thought you might have been high when you said it. and let me tell you.
I am really high.
Marijuana in our country is already legal for privileged people.
I love that. That's a good line, actually, from Booker. Marijuana is already legal for privileged people. People have cancer and other things where they can get medical marijuana. They're extremely privileged.
Yeah, those cancer survivors are
very, very privileged. So privileged, Corey. Exactly. All right.
So I thought the most abhorrent part of this, and this is why I bitched about the 4 women. These 4 women who are doing the headlining thing with Rachel being the queen bee, they made it clear that it was Warren who was going to be the center of attention.
Yeah, it was totally her platform. Yeah. They
just threw everything to her, and they gave her extra time, and it was ridiculous, especially at the beginning. And people say, well, it evened out. It's beside the point. The beginning of the debate is what most people are going to watch, and they're going to tune out. So Warren pretty much had the whole beginning. The first 35 minutes was mostly her. What do you think? Well, let's throw it back to Elizabeth Warren. So they kept her in the spotlight, and then it faded after a while. But everyone was already tuned out by then. The thing that I thought was really sick was they knew, and I guess Kamala was like bitching and moaning about the time that Tulsi 2 or 3 episodes ago jumped on her and condemned her for being a lousy DA and leaving innocent people to rot in prison was their main thing.
Woo!
And so they decided to set Tulsi up so Kamala could excoriate her and call her a phony. And I thought the whole thing was set up to be. It was sick. It was just sick. So I want to play the 2-parter here, which is the beginning, which is they finally, after an hour or so, throw it to Tulsi, but it's a setup for Harris. And this is debate. It says TLSI setup for Harris.
Congresswoman Gabbard, you have criticized Hillary Clinton as the, quote, personification of the...
Yeah, I'm sorry, just to set the clip up even further. This is one of the problems I have with the format. The format is not really a debate. It's asking a-hole questions to each of the candidates. Let's see. What's the controversy? Mary Pete, you got no black people. Tulsi, you're hating on Kamala. It's completely counterproductive.
No, she's hating on Clinton, which is worse.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Clinton. Yes, not even on the stage or even in the race, as far as we know. So that to me was what really made this whole thing kind of offensive.
Congresswoman Gabbard, you have criticized Hillary Clinton as the, quote, personification of the rot that has sickened the Democratic Party. What is the rot you see in the Democratic Party?
That our Democratic Party, unfortunately, is not the party that is of, by, and for the people. It is a party that has been and continues to be influenced by the foreign policy establishment in Washington, represented by Hillary Clinton and others' foreign policy, by the military-industrial complex and other greedy corporate interests. I'm running for president to be the Democratic nominee that rebuilds our Democratic Party, takes it out of their hands, and truly puts it in the hands of the people of this country, a party that actually hears the voices of Americans who are struggling all across this country, and puts it in the hands of veterans and fellow Americans who are calling for an end to this ongoing Bush, Clinton, Trump foreign policy doctrine of regime change wars, overthrowing dictators in other countries, needlessly sending my brothers and sisters in uniform into harm's way to fight in wars that actually undermine our national security and have cost us thousands of American lives. These are wars that have cost us as American taxpayers trillions of dollars since 9/11 alone, dollars that have come out of our pockets, out of our hospitals, out of our schools, out of our infrastructure needs. As president, I will end this foreign policy, end these regime change wars, work to end this new Cold War and arms race, and instead invest our hard-earned taxpayer dollars actually into serving the needs of the American people.
Thank you,
right here at home.
Senator Harris, any response?
No reason at all for a response from Harris.
She didn't mention Harris.
Lame.
That's the only time there's a response was always if you mention another person, then they have to you give them the time to respond.
Yep.
So out of the blue, this
Senator Harris,
woman on the dais, throws it to Harris, knowing full well the background on this. Was it a quid pro quo? I mean, what was the reason for throwing it to Harris?
Harris needed a bone. She's suffering. She needed some help. So here's your moment to shine, Kamala.
And it did catch her a little bit. I don't know if it caught her completely off guard, but I think so. I think so. It seemed to have, and then she kind of laughed about it. And then I didn't surprise she didn't wink at the girl. Maybe she's going to date her.
How about this?
Whatever the case, here we go.
How about this theory? It was already known, hey, we're gonna pitch it to you so you can jump. And I truly believe this goes on. Kamala, we're gonna pitch.
Truly believe or you believe?
No, truly believe. Truly, wholly, all the way in.
You
believe.
know it goes on. You don't believe it goes on.
I know it goes on. No, I don't. I don't know it goes on. I have no proof. But
but you know
I
it goes
know
on.
it goes on. Thank you for correcting the record. Delete that, Charles.
Delete.
So they told her, we're gonna toss it to you so you can trounce all over Tulsi. So just know that that's coming up. And then she's ready for it.
She may have not been aware that this would be the time.
No, that's exactly the point. She didn't. She
because this is not a good time.
No, this is the wrong time. Completely wrong. Here we go.
Senator Harris, any response?
Oh, sure.
What? Yeah, exactly. Oh, sure. Yeah, of course I knew this was coming. I just didn't expect it right now.
Senator Harris, any response?
Oh, sure.
I think that it's unfortunate that we have someone on the stage.
I'm sorry to stop your clip again. This is exactly what I'm talking about. They should have done 20 versions of this. This is what the people want. The audience was dead throughout almost the entire evening. There's no clapping, no hooting and hollering, only a laugh once in a while when there's some tension, which is what you need for the television show. So this was a good moment, except she was unprepared.
Senator Harris, any response?
Oh, sure. I think that it's unfortunate that we have someone on the stage who is attempting to be the Democratic nominee for President of the United States, who during the Obama administration spent 4 years full-time on Fox News criticizing President Obama.
That's
who
ridiculous,
has spent full-time,
That's
who has spent full-time criticizing people on this stage as affiliated with the Democratic Party. When Donald Trump was elected, not even sworn in, buddied up to Steve Bannon to get a meeting with Donald Trump in the Trump Tower, fails to call a war criminal by what he is as a war criminal, and then spends full time during the course of this campaign, again, criticizing the Democratic Party. What we need on the stage in November is someone who has the ability to win. And by that, we need someone on that stage who has the ability to go toe-to-toe with Donald Trump, and someone who has the ability to rebuild the Obama coalition and bring the party and the nation together. I believe I am that candidate.
Thank you, Senator. Congresswoman Gabbard, I'll give you a chance to respond.
What Senator Harris is doing is unfortunately continuing to traffic in lies and smears and innuendos because she cannot challenge the substance of the argument that I'm making, the leadership and the change that I'm seeking to bring in our foreign policy, which only makes me guess that she will, as president, continue the status quo, continue the Bush-Clinton-Trump foreign policy of regime change wars, which is deeply destructive. This is personal to me because I served in Iraq. I left my seat in the state legislature in Hawaii, volunteered to deploy to Iraq, where I served in a medical unit where every single day I saw the terribly high human cost of war. I take very seriously the responsibility that the president has to serve as commander-in-chief.
Yeah, I had to cut it off. She went on and on.
Yeah, of course.
But Kamala said something in there. She says that Tulsi wouldn't say anything about a war criminal. Was she referring to Trump?
No, Assad of Syria. She's the apologist for Assad. Yeah, she's the apologist. Another programming note. It's time to ditch the white. It's time to ditch the hip-hugging pants with the jacket that accentuates what you don't want to accentuate. I think there could be a different a color of blue that would look good on her. But she's got to
Tulsi.
Yeah, she's got to stop with the white hat stuff. It's now the third debate where she's in the same outfit. It's hey, you want people to vote for you? Listen to the Curry Dvorak Consulting Group.
Well, I agree with that, but no one's going to vote for her anyway.
I might vote for her.
She won't be on a ballot for you.
Oh, okay. Oh, write in. The biggest gaffe of the night. I'm somewhat surprised you didn't catch it, nor have I heard anybody mention this. And this was during the Warren plateau, where she was just involved in everything the four moderators were discussing, or the grillers. The grillers, they're not even moderators, just grilling people. And that was about her wealth tax.
I think the way we achieve our goals and bring our country together is we talk about the things that unite us. And that is that we want to build an America that works for the people, not one that just works for rich folks. You know, I have proposed a 2-cent wealth tax. That is a tax for everybody who has more than $50 billion in assets. Your first $50 billion is free and clear. But your $50 billionth and first dollar, you got to pitch in 2 cents. And when you hit $1 billion, you got to pitch in a few pennies more. Here's the thing.
Yeah, the thing, Liz, you don't understand the difference between millions and billions. She says your first 50 billion. Well, that's like 50 guys.
Did she say that?
Twice. She's not only said that, but then
this is because. Okay, here's the reason I missed it. It's like the reason I missed the Biden gaffe with the Nancy Pelosi, blah, 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 blah. The first time I had to record it. I mean, the way people would know how we do these clips, we record them and then we put them pile them up, and then we start producing the clip for the show.
We let them marinate a little bit.
So you got to listen. Marinate it. You got to listen to it a couple of times, and then when you listen to it over and over again, you start to hear things you didn't hear it originally. Yep. Most of the good finds that we've had are from that process. Yes. Now, I didn't record the Warren stuff because pretty much my eyes are glazing over.
I fell asleep too.
And so I'm listening to this, so I did not catch this, but
well, listen again.
I'm hearing it in my head, and I realize she said your first 50 billion.
Well, she says,
which is idiotic.
She says it wrong a couple of times. She says 50 billion, and then she says, so after your first billion. She's just all over the map. She's just confusing it. Listen again.
I think the way we achieve our goals and bring our country together is we talk about the things that unite us. And that is that we want to build an America that works for the people, not one that just works for rich folks. You know, I have proposed a 2-cent wealth tax. That is a tax for everybody who has more than $50 billion in assets. Your first $50 billion is free and clear. But your $50 billionth and first dollar, you got to pitch in 2 cents. And when you hit $1 billion, you got to pitch in a few pennies more. Here's the thing.
So she says 50 billion, and then she says billion again, and then she says when you hit your first billion. So it's I know it's effing.
Yeah.
But someone should have said she is the woman about the trillions of dollars of Medicare. If she can't keep this straight, maybe she meant.
How are you going to be able to be president and can't even do simple math?
Maybe she meant quadrillion instead of trillion. I don't know, but I think she should have been called. The moderators should have at least corrected her on that, but that shows their bias. They didn't. And you even hear
they're not going to. All four of them want Elizabeth Warren to be the candidate.
And you heard the crowd respond.
Obvious. And I think it's shameful that MSNBC and NBC put 4 women by no men, no real woman of color. There was, I think, an Indian woman, and just pretty much promoted one candidate. It was ridiculous. One just called it the Elizabeth Warren show.
Yeah. And then I do have one more final clip. This was Andrew Yang's disqualification, as he was asked what he would say as president when he picked up the phone to speak to Vladimir Putin.
Mr. Yang, if you win the 2020 election, what would you say in your first call with Russian President Vladimir Putin?
It's a fun moment. Well, first I'd say I'm sorry I beat your guy.
Good line. That was funny.
Woo! Yeah!
Not sorry.
And second, I would say the days of meddling in American elections are over, and we will take any undermining of our democratic processes as an act of hostility and aggression. The American people would back me on this. We know that they've found an underbelly and they've been clawing at it, and it's made it so that we can't even trust our own democracy. The third thing I would say is that we're going to live up to our international commitments. We're going to recommit to our partnerships and alliances, including NATO. And it was James Mattis that said that the more you invest in diplomats and diplomacy, the less you have to spend on ammunition. That has to be the path forward to help build.
Okay, stop right there. This was the first thing I took issue with. More, and we're going to do more bureaucrats. That's your plan? More of these a-holes that I watched during the day, during these hearings, just people all over the place, sending our money to whoever they deem necessary. That's it? More bureaucrats? I don't see that happening.
International commitments. We're going to recommit to our partnerships and alliances, including NATO. And it was James Mattis that said that the more you invest in diplomats and diplomacy, the less you have to spend on ammunition. That has to be the path forward to help build an international consensus, not just against Russia, but also to build a coalition that will help us put pressure on China in terms of their treatment of their ethnic minorities and what's going on in Hong Kong. I want to propose a new world data organization, like a WTO for data, because right now, unfortunately, we're living in a world where data is the new oil and we don't have our arms around it. These are the ways that we'll actually get Russia to the table and make it so they have to join the international community and stop resisting appeals to the world order.
So there it is, disqualification, because he's all in on the new world order. He actually says the world order. Second disqualification, data is not the new oil. It is the new bacon. Everybody knows. And a world data organization, let me understand. What data exactly is he talking about?
The WDO.
Yes. I think he's talking about the data that is collected about from us.
Dossiers is what he's talking about.
Thank you. This is total. He's proposing total control at a world level because the data is us. That data is every single piece of data that they have is you. It is who you are. And if you think about it, once they have all of that data, what is our money really? Just a couple more pieces of data. They're coming for that too. That's your world order, your data world order. Disqualified, Yang. Disqualified.